Milgram experiment, understanding obedience and authority. Stanley Milgram and the obedience experiment. Stanley Milgram was a psychologist at Yale University who conducted one of the most famous studies of obedience in psychology. The experiment explored the conflict between obedience to authority and personal conscience implications for society. The Milgram experiment has had significant implications for society and our understanding of obedience and authority. It has shown that people are willing to follow orders from authority figures, even if it goes against their personal conscience. This has important implications for areas such as law enforcement, the military, and government. In 1963, Stanley Milgram investigated the reasoning behind the acts of genocide as presented by individuals on trial at the Nuremberg War criminal trials. Following World War II, these defendants frequently cited obedience as their defense, claiming that they were merely following orders from higher authorities. The Milgram experiment was a social psychology study conducted by Stanley Milgram in the 1960s. It aimed to investigate the willingness of participants to obey an authority figure, even when their actions went against their personal beliefs and values. The study was inspired by the Nuremberg trials, which revealed that Nazi war criminals had justified their actions by claiming they were just following orders. Milgram wanted to explore whether ordinary people would be willing to harm others if instructed to do so by an authority figure. July 1961, experiments commenced, influenced by the trial of Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem. Milgram's fundamental question: were Eichmann and his many Holocaust collaborators merely obeying orders? Investigation aimed to assess the degree of German obedience to authority figures, commonly used explanation for Nazi actions during World War II. Experimental design. Research method. Milgram's study utilized a controlled laboratory experiment with a sample of 40 male participants, recruited through newspaper ads, and paid for their participation. Experimental procedure. Participants were instructed to administer electric shocks to a Confederate in another room who was pretending to receive painful shocks. For incorrect responses on a memory task, the voltage of the shocks increased with each incorrect response, and the experimenter encouraged the participants to continue administering shocks, despite the Confederates' pleas to stop. Results and findings. Milgram found that the majority of participants, 65%, were willing to administer the highest level of shock, 450 volts, to the learner, despite the learner's screams and pleas for mercy. Factors affecting obedience: proximity of the authority figure, legitimacy of the authority figure, perceived responsibility of the authority figure, personal responsibility of the participant, ethical concerns and criticisms. Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments, conducted in the 1960s, were highly controversial due to the ethical concerns they raised. The experiments involved deceiving participants and subjecting them to psychological distress, which led to criticism from both the scientific community and the general public. Deception. One of the primary ethical concerns with Milgram's experiments was the use of deception. Participants were not fully informed about the nature of the study and were misled about the purpose of the experiment. This deception was necessary to prevent participants from altering their behavior and to ensure that the results were valid. But it raised questions about the ethics of using human subjects in research. Psychological distress. Milgram's experiments also subjected participants to psychological distress. Participants were led to believe that they were administering painful electric shocks to another person, and many experienced extreme stress and anxiety as a result. Some participants even exhibited physical symptoms such as sweating, trembling, and stuttering. The use of human subjects in this manner raised serious ethical concerns and led to calls for greater regulation of psychological research. Criticism of experimental design. Milgram's experimental design has also been criticized for its lack of ecological validity. The artificial nature of the experiment may have influenced the behavior of participants, and the results may not be generalizable to real-world situations. Additionally, some critics have argued that the experiment was biased in favor of finding obedience, and that the results may have been influenced by demand characteristics or experimenter bias. Impact and legacy. The Milgram experiment has left a lasting impact on the field of psychology and beyond. Its findings have been referenced in numerous studies and continue to be a topic of discussion and debate. The experiment has raised important ethical questions about the use of deception in research and the responsibility of researchers to protect the well-being of participants. Milgram's work has also had a significant impact on our understanding of obedience and authority, particularly in relation to historical events, such as the Holocaust. The experiment has been used to explain how individuals can be influenced to engage in behaviors that go against their own moral compass when instructed by an authority figure. Implications for society. The Milgram experiment has had a significant impact on our understanding of obedience and authority in society. It has raised important ethical questions about the use of deception in research and the responsibility of researchers to protect their participants. The experiment has also highlighted the power of situational factors in influencing behavior. It has shown how individuals can be led to act in ways that are contrary to their own moral beliefs and values, simply because of the influence of authority figures and social norms. The findings of the Milgram experiment have been used to explain a range of real-world phenomena, from the behavior of soldiers in war to the obedience of citizens in authoritarian regimes. They have also been used to inform the development of ethical guidelines for research and to raise awareness about the importance of informed consent and participant protection.